welcome to the Regeneration and Community meeting for December. Anish, Guillaume Bonachdí na Nolag Dave Gulair, agus Asflian fi Washa de Gokdina Chonian and Argantar. And I'd just like to wish everyone a happy Christmas and a happy New Year to all the people that are living in our district. And secondly, on this historical day in the fight against COVID-19, I would like to send my congratulations to Margaret Keenan, a former resident of our district, on being the first recipient of the vaccine. I would also wish her a happy Christmas and a birthday, and now more D, and good luck to her for the future. Item number 1 on the agenda, apologies. Leskiel, Barry Michael Dove.
Okay, thank you, Chair. No apologies from the Sinn Féin group.
Gurumila Barry. Earl Thompson.
Thank you again, Chairman. No apologies from the Democratic Unionist Party. Thank you.
Victor.
Thank you, Chair. No apologies from the Unionist Party.
And Mary, any apologies from SDLP?
Thank you, Chair, and a lovely start to the meeting. One apology, Councillor Garvin McPhillips, and happy Christmas and New Year to you and yours.
Thank you, Mary. Thanks to all. And any of the independents and small parties, any apologies? Thank you, members. Item 2 on the agenda is the minutes of the previous meeting. Yeah, just checking with John, there was a previous minutes that needed signing, and they both have been signed now in order with the procedures. Item 3, declarations of interest. Darvri Usama, any declarations of interest? Again, Councillor Mary Garrity.
6.2, Chairman, just grant the aid panel as a member. Thank you.
Councillor Thornton.
Similar, a 6.2 grant the appeal panel.
Next, Councillor Deehan. Collier Deehan.
Thank you, Chair. 6.2 as a member or associate of some of the recipient groups, and 7.1 and 13.0 as a member of the Planning Committee. Chair, thank you.
Josephine. Next up, Collier Michael Lear, Lannerai, Emmett.
Charlotte, 6.9 or sorry, 6.2, the grant aid recommendations, a member of the Appeals Committee. 7.3 just as the Broadband Working Group, and 7.4 the Community Planning Strategic Partnership Board. Thank you.
Next up is Councillor Erskine, Deborah Erskine, please.
Thank you, Chair. 6.2 as I'm associated with some of the groups receiving funding. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Councillor McLaughlin.
Thank you, Chair. 6.2, I'm Secretary of our Deaf Community Association, one of the beneficiaries.
Thank you, John. Next up, Councillor Rainey.
Thank you, Chair. 6.2, as an associated recipient.
Thank you, Alan. Donola Coffey, Collier Coffey.
Yeah, it's 9.7. I'm a member of Belcoo Frackfree. Thank you.
Thank you, Donald. Collier Siobhan Curry.
Gurmaga de Caherley, 6.2. I'm a member of Devonish Partnership Forum in Strathnairnia. I'm also declaring an interest in 7.5 as a member of Devonish Partnership Forum, but it's just for noting, so I won't be. I just won't take part in it.
Right, Gurmaga, Siobhan. Councillor Buchanan, Mark Buchanan.
Thanks, Chair. Just declaration on 6.2 as well. Grant aid, a member of Carlish Ulster Scots, there, one of the recipients. Thank you.
Good man. Thanks, Mark. Collier Stephen McCann. Stephen.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, 6.2 as a member of one of the recipient groups, and also 8.2 as a member of the Decade of Commemorations Working Group.
Good Stephen. Councillor John Coyle. Collier John Coyle.
Thanks, Chair. 6.2 Grant Appeals Panel member. Thank you.
And Collier, Adam Gannon. Adam.
Thank you, Chair. 6.1, member of the Geopark Committee, and 7.2, lag.
Adam. Earl Thompson, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much, Chairman. 6.2, Grant Aid Panel. 7.4, Community Planning Strategic Partnership Board. 8.2, Executive Commemorations Working Group. Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, Earl, we have some background noise. Could all members mute, please, unless you're speaking?
I'll cover them again, Chair.
Try again, Earl, please. Thank you.
6.2, Grant Aid Panel. 7.4, Community Planning Strategic Partnership Board. And 8.2, Decade of Commemorations Working Group. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Earl. Councillor Baird, Alex Baird.
Thank you, Chair. 6.1, Para 211, in relation to the Marble Arch Caves, as a member of what was the Joint Committee, now the Geopark Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Stephen Donnelly, Collier Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair. Just declaring interest 6.2 as an associate of Culmore and O'Kane Residents Association, and also as a past associate of Oma Explorer Scouts. And then just under 8.2 and 7.3 for Decade of Centenaries and Broadband. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Donnelly. Next one now is Collier Glenn Campbell. Glenn.
Yes, Chairman, 6.2 as a member of Dromore GFC, one of the recipients.
Okay, and Councillor Paul Robinson. Paul.
$7.2 lag, and 8.2 decoration and commemorations, and 13 planning.
Thank you, Paul. Next up, Collier Barra Magalove.
Like Councillor Stephen Donnelly, I'm a member of the CKS Culmore O'Kane Residents Group, appointed by this council. Okay, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Bert Wilson. Bert, you there? You should be good to go there now, Bert. Sorry, I'll come back to you, Bert. Next on the list is Collier Anthony Feely. Anthony?
Thank you, Keith Hurley. 14.0, being a member of Devonish St Mary's GA Club. Not a playing member now, Tommy, but the two clubs in the cut he's been playing from underage up to the present day. I don't really think there's much need declaring an interest. I have no financial benefit out of it, but it's the rules, and I'll not be leaving the room. I'll be sitting here on the couch, but I'll not be getting involved in the debate, which is a pity. And I'm not sure about them planning ones, Tommy. If any of that planning stuff comes up, I have the numbers written down here at the planning committee if they come up, but I'm not sure the numbers. Okay.
I don't think they're relevant to our planning committee, Anthony, but we can judge that when we come to them. Try again now. Collier Sean Clark.
Yeah, Chair, the lag committee. I forget what number it is, but the lag committee.
Good enough, Sean. Thanks for that. And Councillor Chris Smith. Chris.
Thanks. Thanks, Chair. 6.2 as associated with number of the groups, but Scouts being the main one.
Thanks for that, Chris. And Bert.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, got you now, Bert. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. 6.2, a member of the Grant Aid's recommendation for Call 2 and the Recovery Fund programme Call 3, Paper B. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Bert. Again, I am on the Grant Aid panel, but I am not involved with any of the groups that are getting a financial reward, so I no need to declare the actual interest. Councillor Diana Armstrong.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair. Item 7.2, lag board member, and item 7.4, community planning and strategic partnership. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Diana. Collier Christopher McCaffrey.
Gormogad, Kyherley was Gormogad asking the Bannock Donola Corhugging. I just wonder if it's appropriate if I could make a comment here. It's not a declaration of interest, but just a short comment, if that would be permissible.
Go ahead, Chris. There was no further declarations, I believe. Lanneray, Christopher.
Yeah, well, we just noted that the extraordinary news this morning that a woman originally from County Fermanagh was given the first post-trial COVID vaccine. And I think this is wonderful news, and it's wonderful that, of course, I hope people will follow the example and that they will indeed accept this vaccine, because there unfortunately has been a lot of misinformation going around, and we hopefully can dispel of that now today. But I just wanted to point out that I know sometimes the tagline Inniskill in County Fermanagh, we know that she's from around the area, but I think just to be we've been more accurate, I believe the woman in question would have had Belcoo connections, originally a descendant of Thomas Cassidy from around the Belcoo area. So I think it's just important to note that, and also that the nurse who administered the vaccine was Mae Parsons, originally from the Philippines. So I think it's important that we note that people from all backgrounds have helped in this, and we fully value the importance and the great work that is going on in the NHS at the moment from from people of various different backgrounds and ethnicity. So I think it's important just that we put that on record. Gormogad Melig and Shocklishin Gormogad.
To Fulcher Road, Christopher, and again, just the information I received, she has relations living in the Tempo area, but happy to have the knowledge that she's from our district. Gormogad Carley. Anthony, your hand's still up there if you wish to speak, or...
Yeah, I did. Sorry, Tommy, I don't know whether this is the right time. Maybe somebody's mentioned already. I was late coming in about the Fermanagh ladies winning on Saturday evening. Can I just mention that, Tommy, or is it okay?
Certainly, Anthony, go ahead.
Yeah, it was a great achievement for them to win the All Ireland intermediate final, and I just want, would the council send a letter of congratulations to them? I know we can't have a championships and nothing like that. And I know GE and hurling's a team sport, but my own club member, Erskine plays for Devonish, the club we're going to be talking about later on, one player of the match. So it's a great achievement. I'd just like if we could send them a letter of congratulations, Tommy, if that's okay.
We'll get that checked, Anthony, but I believe anyone that achieves a national achievement across the island usually does warrant at least a letter of congratulation. We'll get that checked, Anthony. Thanks for that. Collier Christopher McCaffrey, Arish.
Gormogad Kyherley is me Liggins Rash. Bawilum mo Vanach di occur and foreign Armanok Nama Armanok Galer Rinny Shade Eocht den Skog as how much fear Vodul Astu Lig. I just want to come in quickly and agree with the comments and second the comments by my colleague Councillor Feely on the victory of the Iron Ladies, and it was great to see Captain Courtney Murphy lifting the cup at the end. I think we all felt extremely proud and emotional just watching that interview back, and it was a significant achievement throughout the entire pandemic we've been facing, and the ups and downs of that we've all been going through. So I think it was a moment of huge pride, and definitely a great day for the parish, as I say. So just come in there, Gormogad.
Right, Gormogad Christopher and Cartugget, August we Majilig Brodual Aaron Law. Thanks for that. I'm sure we were all very proud on the day. Collier Bernice Swift, go ahead, Bernice.
Gormogad, Kirla and Bannock acknowledged too, and just to come in on those few comments as well. Just first of all to say to the council about the beautiful Christmas decorations. Tommy, you'll see in your own town the beautiful swan lit up, and it's really fabulous. It's really beautiful backdrop to the lovely little house all lit up. But I especially want to point out the beautiful display at the side of the Intech Centre, the 12 days of Christmas. How glorious, and it really does bring a nice bit of pizzazz and spirit to the whole season. 'Tis the season to be jolly, but bearing in mind all of those who are not feeling so jolly this season either. Again, concur with the wonderful comments you made at the start about the elderly lady being the first in the world, and just for all your information, her connection as well, and indeed to this council, you possibly probably know yourself, Tommy, former councillor Jerry McHugh's connection. So that the wife is the niece of that elderly lady, and Jerry's daughters were interviewed on the TV this evening. Great to see them on the big screen for such a world famous indeed event. And again, just to support the comments made about our fantastic Fermanagh ladies, and we can all talk about our own clubs, but the Harps and all of the Ern West teams, Enniskill and the whole lot did a fantastic job, made us all proud, so energetic, and what a fantastic result. And I think they're well deserved of a very appropriate party when appropriate. Gurmagat.
Aye, Gurmagat, Bernice, thanks for that again. Okay, members, is that all the comments before we get into the business of the day? Thank you, members, for that. Item 4 and 5, I will be moving, and I will be bringing them in after correspondence, I believe. Yes, after correspondence, just before item 10. I've also had a request to bring forward an item on the agenda in the hope that we will get it successfully completed this evening. I have decided to bring forward item 14, the Loch Melvin Holiday Centre paper, and I will be introducing it at the end of item 8, before item 9, before the correspondence. So I hope you can bear with me, members, with those changes. So now we go on to item 6, item 6 and item 6.1, and over to Kim for that.
Thank you, Chair. So item 6.1 is report and business case assessment, and just to note that council powers have been conferred to the committee to deal with this item, and the report outlines 7 business cases which were assessed in accordance with the policy template. The 7 business cases are outlined for you on pages 1, 2 and 3, and the recommendation, Chair, is that the council approves the business cases.
Thanks for that, Kim. Have we a proposer? Earl Thompson.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you to Kim. I'm happy enough to propose the recommendation.
Thanks for that, Earl. And Councillor Thornton, Howard.
Very happy to second it, Chair.
Thanks for that, Howard. Thank you. No further indications. We'll move on to item 6.2. Over to you again, Kim.
Okay, thank you, Chair. And again, council powers have been deferred to the committee for this item, and it relates to grant aid recommendations. So it relates to the second call for grant aid for 2020-21, which covers a number of grant streams, that being Good Relations, Irish in the Community, Policing and Community Safety Partnership, Remembering and Commemoration, Seeding Grants, and Ulster Scots in the Community. And there were 75 applications received to that funding stream. The second grant call was the Recover Fund programme, and this is the third of 3 calls, and a total of 79 applications were received to that programme, and the applications received are outlined on the attached appendix. So it's recommended, Chair, that the council approve the recommendations of the Grant Aid E-panel held on the 2nd of December in respect of the second Grant Aid call 2021 and the Recover Fund programme call 3.
Okay, members. Councillor Warrington.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I'm happy enough to propose that paper. Just wanted to ask Kim, and maybe the grant from the previous call at the 2 Maguire's Bridge and Donola, I think it was, in Fintna, were well over the threshold but didn't get. Maybe their applications aren't in the same categories of this grant call. Can you maybe enlighten me a wee bit on that, please?
Okay, Chair, sorry, could you, I'm just wondering which grant stream that one was. Councillor, could you?
I don't have it just to hand here, Kim.
Sorry, Victor, if I could cut across you there. Obviously, Kim just doesn't seem to have the information at hand.
That's okay.
Would it be okay if she gets back to you maybe tomorrow, Victor, in relation to those 2 items, as they're not strictly on our agenda tonight? Okay, Victor, thanks for that. Councillor Paul Robinson.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Paul. Everyone agreed? Thank you, members.
Sorry, agreed to what there. I was slow on the button, Tommy. I wanted to come in with a question. Had me hand up.
Sorry, Seamus, no hand showing on my screen there, but go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. No, there's a question in around the Irish community and Ulster Scots community. I seen on the Irish one there was 13 applications, of which they got something over 6,500. Roughly, they were getting in about half of what, or less than half of what they had applied for. In the Ulster Scots one, there was 6 applications, of which every one of them got the full allocation, bar one that had been looking for 2,200 and got 2,100. Could I get an explanation on that, please?
Right, Seamus, thanks for that. We will try if Kim has the information there.
Okay, I'm just looking, Chair, at the appendix, and we can see the number of applications that were received and the amount recommended. The total budget allocated is outlined. So, in terms of Irish in the community, the report is outlining that the total budget was 6,845, and in terms of Ulster Scots, the total budget is identified here as 7,520 for the grant streams. And as you can see, the allocations are dependent on the applications that have been received.
Yeah, and just to follow up, Tommy, then, if there's such a demand on the Irish language community, how is the funding stream so low on that? It's obviously not fit for purpose, and Ulster Scots one seems to be fairly adequate for what? Because like if 13 groups are applying and they're getting less than half of what they had applied for, there's obviously something wrong with the funding stream.
I think we could bring a report that the totality of the budget streams that are allocated across those. I know there are a range of other funding elements in terms of Irish language programs, and I think.
Yeah, but this is good relations. This is under this particular fund, and so it's this one that I would be interested in. I'm not really interested in what any other. I'll question about any other streams if and when I need to. But on this good relations one, it seems to be inadequate for Irish language or Irish community.
Sorry, Chair. The good relations funding is at item 1 on the appendix on pages 3 and 4, whereas the Irish one is a separate fund, and that's on page 5 of the report. But I don't have the totality of the information about the full picture of the funding streams in front of me. Certainly, I can liaise with Community Health and Leisure and bring the full detail back next month.
Okay, thanks for that, Kim. I'll be expecting it next month, and because there does something fundamentally wrong there.
Okay.
Thanks for that, Seamus. Collier McCann.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. If that requires a formal seconder, I'll second that. It just seems from the optics of looking at the report that there is a disparity, regardless of how Irish is financed or resourced elsewhere. You know, it should be a pool which is open for obviously grant applications and should be treated on merit. You know, so it seems that there is a deficit there. But I look forward to seeing Kim's report next month or whenever it comes in. Thanks, Chair.
Stephen. Okay, members, we have a proposer and seconder for the recommendation. All happy at this stage? Thank you, members. Moving on to item 7.1, and again, it's over to yourself, Kim.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So this report is in relation to identifying land for social housing development and engagement with the Northern Ireland Housing Executive, and really it's a follow-up to a number of recommendations which have come through at separate meetings. So at section 1 I've outlined the recommendation which was agreed resolution agreed at the special council meeting on the 28th of September about a report on opportunity sites in Omagh suitable for consideration for social housing development and clarification in relation to the engagement between the Housing Executive, community planning and local development planning. Then at the council meeting on the 3rd of November there was a a decision around convening informal meetings and workshops on a DEA basis to identify potential sites suitable for housing, social housing, and also in relation to the community planning action, which is led by the housing executive. And then there was a further decision taken at the Regeneration Community Committee meeting in November, which was around approaches to regeneration in the two main towns and then rolling that out to rural towns and villages. So I suppose there's a bit of overlap in terms of the recommendations outlined, and this report is an attempt to take forward a coordinated approach to a place-shaping programme of work across a range of service areas, including community planning and the local development plan team, in conjunction with a range of partners. So in terms of the updates through community planning, just to note that the Housing Executive is leading on the development of a community plan in action, which aims to work in partnership with the community voluntary sector, government departments and other housing providers to address the issue of homelessness and housing demand within the local area. The Housing Executive does accept, in terms of taking forward that work, that its waiting list does not take account of latent housing demand, and the action seeks to develop robust data gathering methods to demonstrate levels of hidden homelessness to inform service delivery and ensure that need is fully understood and picked up. And that process will require a high level of interagency cooperation to map the need type and support services required. It will work towards a local homelessness action plan for the district, and will also take forward significant work on asset mapping across a range of partners to identify potential sites that could be acquired to meet and be used towards social housing and other types of housing. And at the November meeting of the Community Planning Strategic Partnership Board, it was also agreed to progress a rural pilot study to identify suitable opportunities for social housing. The paper then does go on to outline the work of the local development plan process through the plan strategy and the consultation that is taken forward through that approach, the cognizance that is given to the housing need for the district and the statistics available on that issue, and also refers to the policies relative to housing development within the draft plan strategy. Also worth noting that the local development plan team intends to prepare supplementary planning guidance in relation to affordable housing to help aid the application of policy HOU 3, and that work will be taken forward through the LDP steering group, and of which we met earlier this evening, and there was some discussion around that. In terms of elected member engagement with the Housing Executive, that engagement is facilitated through a number of avenues. So firstly, through the Community Planning Strategic Partnership Board, the Local Development Plan Steering Group, and associated reports to the Regeneration and Community Committee. And further to the decision taken at the 3rd of November Council meeting, there will also be informal meetings scheduled, either with the Council or on a DEA basis, with NIHE to facilitate discussions and draw on local knowledge on potential sites currently available. So the recommendations of the report, Chair, are that we note the contents of the report, including the work progressing through the Community Planning Partnership. We note that the Local Development Plan team will work with the LDP steering group on the preparation of supplementary planning guidance, and will also work with the steering group in consideration of the most suitable development options for opportunity sites in our towns, and also notes that a report on the proposed approach and time frame for the study to identify how the full regeneration potential of the two main towns, followed by studies for other towns and villages in the district, will be considered at the next meeting of the steering group in December, which actually took place earlier today. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Kim. First up, Collier McCann, Stephen McCann.
Apologies, Chair, I'll just pull the hand out.
All right. Collier Donola Coffee.
Thank you, Gormaga Chair. Just in terms of, I'm happy enough to note this report. Having said that, we really do need to see a significant step change in terms of investment. It is not enough for the Housing Executive to see the community voluntary sector as the answer to homelessness. The answer to homelessness is the social housing provision needs to go dramatically up the statistic quoted there that only 10% of the housing market in 2016 was social housing. The fact that there has been a massive surge in the number of people looking for social housing in both Enniskillen and Omagh means that we need to see urgent investment directly, I believe, from the housing executive itself. And I do welcome, and I want to welcome the engagement that they're hoping to bring forward with ourselves as councillors, as the council, in terms of identifying sites. I think imagination is required. There's opportunities, and we need to make sure we get delivery. So I'm happy to note that and look forward to ongoing work on it. Thank you.
Okay, Chair, I'd like to propose the adoption of the recommendations. And again, at a recent council meeting, I and others welcomed, Minister Carol Nicholan's radical shake-up, which has given people new hope. And I think the paper written by Kim is very good. It identifies the key issues. I would just maybe ask Kim, in relation to item 213 within the paper, are there other key players who could join the action there, including housing associations? Just one obvious exception that's missing there is Triangle, and I know Triangle have been in this area, at this time. That's a question. But also to note that a good number of people, a significant number of people that I am in touch with are people who live in private housing, unsatisfactory private housing, and they would love to get into the public housing arrangement because it would give them security of tenure and better conditions, and people's mobility requirements have changed over the years, and that's basically it. There's a huge demand here. I welcome the DEA workshop approach that is being taken early in 21, and I do think that local drilling down is important, because in a rural area, 6 or 8 houses could make a huge difference. Perhaps in Omagh or Enniskillen, we're looking at bigger schemes, but we all have some specific ideas that we'd like to put on the table in partnership with the housing executive going forward. So thank you, Chair. Happy to propose the recommendations. Thank you, Chair.
Donola, are you happy enough to second then your more formal proposal from Barry there for the recommendations? Are you happy to second, Donola?
Yeah, I'm happy.
Next up, Collier Michael Lear, Lana Ray Emmett.
Yeah. Just the first thing was on page 1.2, item 1, there's just a spelling correction needed on that. The second line on is the housing executive to identify potential sites, I suppose, as opposed to identity potential sites. Other than that, I think as the previous speakers have said, it's a promising piece of literature coming back to us. I think the idea of the working in partnership is a good one, as long as, I suppose, these statutory bodies still uphold and maintain the level of care and level of duty that they have. I think it's important to note there at the top of page 3, I suppose the different reasons and explanations behind homelessness, and I think noting some of them there is very good, and it's a positive step from the council. And I think just overall it has potential to be a good document, a good start off. I think as Councillor offered, the fact that I suppose there were over 2,800 people between Fermanagh and Omagh in the waiting list. Sorry, 1,000 people on the waiting list, 1,153 in housing stress is very worrying, very concerning. And I suppose the 282 allocated is quite a small percentage of that. So looking in the rest and taking legs over the coming years.
And Margaret Collier, so everyone happy enough with that proposal? Item 7.2, rural regeneration. Kim again.
Okay, thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report then is to update members on a further assessment exercise to be progressed through the Village Renewal Scheme arising from underspends from the Fermanagh and Omagh LAG and Rural Development Programme and also to note the outcome of the assessment of the TRIPC Rural Business Development Grant Scheme. So well, in terms of the Village Renewal Scheme, in November 2019, DAERA advised Council that additional funding may be made available for further village renewal projects. So at that time, a public call was advertised to invite projects from across the district, which were in a state of readiness, including statutory approvals and land ownership matters being progressed. At that time, we received 39 expressions of interest. That was in January 20. However, due to the developing pandemic situation, DAERA wasn't able to provide funding towards an extension of the scheme at that time. However, in September 20, DAERA did inform the LAG that underspend from across the Rural Development Programme themes could then only be made available to additional village renewal projects. There is currently an identified underspend of around 150,000. So we have made contact again with the applicants for those 39 expressions of interest to ascertain if those projects are still viable and wish to proceed, and to seek then the follow-on documentation. There is a framework developed for assessment of those projects, which will be used to assess the 39 projects, and that is attached to this paper. Once assessed, the projects will be ranked by score, and there will be a matrix identifying the villages for selection, which will then be presented to Council for approval under Strand 1 and Strand 2. However, just to note that the funding is limited, and there will be an extremely limited outcome in terms of the ability to support additional projects from this call. It is subject also to that funding being available and the Council providing its match contribution up to 25%. Under the TRIPC element, the Rural Business Development Scheme, which was opened in August, it sought applications from existing micro-enterprises in rural areas. The scheme received 307 applications, of which 170 progressed to stage 2 assessment, and we have now awarded letters of offer at a total grant award of £345,448, and workshops will be scheduled now in December with the aim of expenditure being incurred by February to draw down the grant award. So in terms of the financial implications, Chair, just to note that the Council contribution for the Village Renewal Scheme can be made up of in-kind and cash contribution, and can be scheduled in terms of the estimates for the 21-22 capital budget. So it's recommended that the Council approves the assessment process in respect of the addition to the Village Renewal Scheme, approves the request to match fund the successful village renewal projects, and notes the outcome of the TRIPC Rural Business Development Grant Scheme.
Thanks for that, Kim. First up is Councillor Anne-Marie Donnelly. Anne-Marie.
Thank you, Chair. Didn't realise I was first there. Welcome the update, Kim. As a member of the LAG, this is something that we've discussed at length. I'm very conscious of how time limited we are, so I'm welcoming the approval for the match funding at this stage, even before the assessments take place, because time is going to be of the essence in relation to these projects, because the last thing we want to do is to hand this 150,000 back to DAERA if we can't spend it. Village renewal is top of our agenda. We want to promote, such projects in our community. Whoever receives them at this stage, no one's identified. So I really welcome this update. Thank you very much, Kim.
Are you happy enough to propose the recommendations, Councillor Donnelly?
I think I would rather just as a member of the LAG, I'd prefer just to step back from it, just Tommy.
Fair enough, understandable, Anne-Marie, good enough. Councillor Donald O'Coffey.
Yeah, Chair, there's 3 items here. I'm happy enough to propose based on one change. I suggest that if there was some way to work in, because obviously the conditions have dramatically changed in terms of the society, the economic factors that are facing our villages. If we can factor in somehow the potential exposure to the impact of Brexit, and also the any impact, if there's any way of assessing the relative impact that COVID has had on the economic scarring of the villages themselves. So if there was some way to figure that in, that would be something I would like to see, but I'm happy to propose it. There's 2 other things I would just like to raise this very briefly. One is our entire methodology here is really it's dependent upon receiving applications from communities. Now, I understand that's a fair way to do it, but I believe that there is a vast difference between the capacities of certain communities to make these applications. And my experience, having looked at it even from a short period of time, is that we seem to see that there's some communities are at risk of falling through the cracks. So if there's a possibility of some form of an assessment of the number of applications, the size of applications being made by different areas of our community, because I think there are certain areas of our community which are not making applications. And finally, if there was a possibility of emphasizing deprivation within the process, because I think the key determinant for me is around deprivation, and there are communities, rural communities, which are suffering really serious deprivation at this time. So if that could be factored in. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks for that. Donal, do you wish to respond at this point, Kim?
Okay. A number of questions there. So in terms of the potential exposure to Brexit and COVID-19, I will liaise with our data scientist, but however, available data may be limited on both those elements at this point in time, but we will see what's available to us to be able to take into account if members agree. The second point in terms of assessment of the different needs of communities, I know that our community services team do actively work to identify capacity building needs and identify communities which maybe our community services officers can work with to support, and that's something that they are continually looking out for. And in terms of the application of the criteria, there is consideration given to deprivation stats in terms of the framework that is developed.
Thanks for that, Kim. Next up is Councillor Siobhan Corey.
Gormagad Caherly, and thank you, Kim, as well for taking us through that. And I am also a member of the LAG, but it is just around the assessment framework, and rightly Kim saying there about the socio-economic need is one of the assessment criteria. But the third assessment criteria is track record. It's on page 4 of Appendix 1, and it says above figure 2 that the track record element will consider funding received through previous village renewal schemes and the success of previous delivery. And just in my conversations with officers of the council, my understanding is that actually villages who haven't received this funding before would be prioritised. So I just really want clarification around that. I do think that is the intention, but that's not clear from the framework here. Gormagad.
Gormagad. Siobhan, any response at that stage, Kim?
Yes, just to note that is set out within the framework, that there is a track record element, and that does consider the success of previous delivery, and there is a weighting also applied as part of that consideration. So I can get clarity and make that information clearer in terms of the application of that framework, if that would be helpful for members.
Aye, thanks for that, Kim. I think it would, given that whether they need a track record. Obviously, if they're a new applicant, they won't have a track record. I think that's the issue, perhaps. Councillor Deehan, Councillor Deehan.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Kim, for your report. Just in relation to the TRIPSI Rural Business Support Awards, is there any flexibility in the 26th of February date for completion of the works? These are grants for capital items of expenditure, and the letters of offers not going out until December with completion by February. It seems a short space of time in which to work, and also the impact of COVID on delivery of the work. Is there any flexibility there around that time frame? Thank you, Chair.
I would expect that would be extremely limited, Councillor, in terms of DAERA's requirements around year-end spend and the need to have the documentation in place in terms of their processes. We can certainly, I can go back, and there may be potential for a day or two around that, but I would expect it's extremely limited in terms of
Well, Chair, I
flexibility.
would appreciate that if Kim, if you could explore that. It seems like an unusually short space of time to deliver these capital projects. Admittedly, the sums involved are small, but I'm aware that there can be no approval or grants given to work that has already been completed. So you're really talking about 2 months, and when you take the Christmas period out of it and so on, it's very, very short time frame. So, I mean, given the COVID situation, I should be grateful if we would explore that. I would propose we write to DAERA and see formally if they can extend that deadline, Chair. Thank you.
I'll certainly be able to liaise with DAERA and liaise with their own officers in terms of the drawdown timelines around that, Chair, if that is helpful. It is for procurement of funding of capital items as opposed to any specific capital works. So it may be slightly more straightforward than capital works as such, but I'll clarify the details of that.
Councillor Dean, you happy enough if it is left to Kim to liaise to see if she can get a slight extension? The writing of the letter, obviously, and the waiting for the response would probably not add to or probably would add to the time if that's sufficient. Thanks for that, Councillor Dean. Very good. Next up, Councillor Seamus Green.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to come in and support what Councillor Curry said there. My interpretation from conversations previously was that villages that hadn't received would be looked favourably, which you would imagine that would be the fair way of doing it, as long as they fitted all the other criteria. The fact that they have now left it, that it seems to be villages that have previously got, seems an extraordinary turn of events. So I would certainly support Councillor Curry on that. One other thing too is when we talk about deprivation, there is it's a very, very flawed criteria on that. For instance, there is DEAs in our area whose see as down as being areas of deprivation, but an area like Cunyon isn't. And again, it's almost laughable that this is the way. So it's an absolute flawed situation and really unfair to certain areas of our council area. So I would caution on that. It's this broad brush thing of deprivation isn't the way. I don't think is the way to go. We default as a council. We default badly on that when the money's been allocated from central government. So I would hate to think that then we copy what central government's doing, and then areas that deserve it has been lost in our area because of us following something that we don't agree with when central government doesn't. So just a few points.
Thanks for that, Seamus. Next up, Councillor Barra McElduff. Barra.
Chair. Just to say that I can understand that the track record aspect of this is important in one sense, that the success of previous delivery, that's deemed to be a strength. But I do think that Councillor Green and Councillor Curry are making very valid points about some weighting or some recognition or priority being given to villages that have never succeeded or maybe never applied. And I wonder, is there a piece of work to be carried out in the future aimed at building the capacity of villages and groups within villages to make such an application? You know, is there a little bit of capacity building work to be done? Because I think it does sound unfair. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
John has a response to that, Barry.
Yeah, Chair, thank you. I suppose in relation to that, that is something that we're very aware of, Chair, in relation to building the capacity of those who historically don't put in applications to our council and may not have the capacity to do it. And it's something in the next couple of months that I hope to bring a report through here of structural changes so that we can affect those, identify those who are most in need within our district with regard to making applications or whatever, and trying to put structures in place in order to make sure that that the needs of those communities are met with regard to the support that our community services staff provide. They do, on a continual basis, work with community groups, but we are aware, as I say, that there are some groups who maybe don't contact the council, and it's those who are slipping through the net, and it's those who we will be concentrating on in the next number of months. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that, John. Barry, do you wish to second the recommendations when you're on there, Barry?
I do so, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good.
Chair, can I just clarify something on that?
Go ahead in that response. Go ahead, Seamus.
If we pass this here, we're passing the document as it is, and which actually seems to give credence to past success. So I'm a wee bit concerned about passing the document as is with, or are we taking into account them comments before we pass it?
We can certainly take account of the comments that are made, but I suppose we do need to have an agreed criteria that we can apply. So if there's any changes that are required, it would require, I suppose, a report to come back. If we're suggesting,
can I withdraw my second, because I have to take into account what Councillor Green is saying. Just let this flow a bit more. Thank you, Chair.
Right, Barry. Yeah.
Obviously, I think there has been a certain amount of opinions there in relation to that. So I think they should be taken into account. Kim, we just can't pass it as is without that we're happy on it, because obviously we weren't.
well, then could I suggest that if we could get a proposer and seconder for parts 2 and 3 of the paper, and that I would report back to the next meeting on the assessment process, clarifying the detail of the process that's set out here, and bring in a report to identify if the issues members have identified are taken account of in that assessment process.
Yeah, I propose that.
Are you happy enough to, well, Donald already proposed. Are you happy enough to second, Seamus?
The Donald proposed, yeah. I'm not sure whether Donald proposed what Kim's after repeating there.
Well, fair enough. I concede that. So next up is Councillor O'Coffey. So we'll get clarification now.
Yeah, I'm happy. I'm very. What I was raising was the same kind of issue in a different form, maybe, but I certainly would be entirely agree with what's been said about the need to take cognizance of capacity in the way that if people haven't applied, that's really what I was getting at. That there's areas that aren't applying, and that they are kind of locked out, but I'm certainly happy subject to that. The one thing I would like to add into the proposal is I think what Councillor Green there said is actually extremely true, that the measure, now I think the issue of deprivation is entirely legitimate, but the problem is that the measure that is being used by the department's instalment is actually, I believe, directed in a certain direction, and I think it would be a useful exercise for this council to look and consider, if we can, bringing forward some form of advanced critique of the mechanism by which deprivation indices are calculated, because the result of that is that huge quantities of money are not going to rural, especially rural areas. There's a few contributors, anyway, but I think we should bring some forward on that. Thanks.
Yeah, Donald. Well, for the length of time I've been in the council, that has been a continuing debate about the assessment of deprivation, and indeed the inequalities in the assessments about the 5,000 population, etc. We nail that every time we get an opportunity. Councillor Deehan, you've already spoken the issue, and I see Councillor Donnelly is in. I'm bringing Anne-Marie in first. Anne-Marie Donnelly, Collier Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just conscious of the deadline for spending this money, and obviously they were talking about £150,000 here. You know, do we have time to go back and reassess or re-look at the assessment process? Or are we putting at risk the 150,000 for the village renewal projects that have already expressed the interest and identified their projects in January 2020? You know, are we really going to be opening up? We can't open up a call again. That's my understanding as a member of the LAG. These groups have already expressed their interest. I'm just concerned that we could lose this money and perhaps have to hand it back to Deborah, you know, if we delay.
Yeah, thanks for that, Councillor Donnelly. I think that is the undercurrent, all right. I'll hand back to Kim just to see if we can get this moved on slightly.
Yes, Chair. Councillor Donnelly is correct. We certainly wouldn't be able to reopen the call. There wouldn't be time to do that. This would be restricted to the call that we've already received. The issue is about whether we can add to, if members are unhappy with the assessment criteria that is there, we can look at whether we can add to or improve that. But it would certainly be limited to the expressions of interest that we've already received.
Members, there we have it. We need to progress this item given the timescales, as Councillor Donnelly indicated there. So, Seamus, you're happy enough to propose the recommendations as they are? And Councillor Coffey, you're happy to second?
I'm happy to propose what Kim previously said on it, given that it can be done within the time scale.
The time scale is obviously critical at this stage, members, so I'm sure Kim will bring your expressions of concern. As I say, there was clarification required there on the point of whether it was new villages or ones that already had applied. And I think from Kim, the indication is the ones that haven't applied yet are going to be too late given the time frame.
No, it's limited to the 39 expressions of interest that have already been received.
There we are, members. That is the position we have. So, are you happy enough to proceed with it?
Well, then,
to at least get the benefit out to that.
For clarity, Tommy, can I ask then, is there a number of them villages that applied that didn't previously get, which is going on the same point? And, you know, are we weighing anything toward the ones that haven't previously got? Like, we don't want to be in a situation where some villages get 2 or 3 bites of it and another village that's one of the 39 or a number of villages that's in the 39 doesn't get anything. That can't be really fair. I don't think we could stand over that.
I understand, Councillor, but I think the position is with the speed of using up money that is left from a previous budget, that it's villages that already have applied and have a more or less a spade-ready action that are going to avail of this funding. That's my understanding. If Kim can verify that, we may be in a position that if we stall too long, even the villages that have already applied would miss out. And I understand your concerns about villages that haven't applied in the past, but maybe this is just a time to redress that going forward as opposed to stalling this particular issue.
Yeah, the issue would be about looking at the criteria and ensuring that the criteria takes account of members' comments, and that would be the criteria that's then applied to the 39 expressions of interest that are already received. Yeah.
All right. Happy enough with that clarification, councillors?
Yeah, that seems to be all right. We're taking into account the villages that hasn't been even. Okay.
Aye, but obviously, if the money can be spent in the district, given the timescales, maybe we'd happy enough to go with Kim's recommendation that stage. So happy enough to have a proposer, Seamus, and seconded Donola Coffey. All agreed? Thank you, members. Okay. And now moving on to 7.3, the Broadband Working Group. That's over to Kim again, please.
Okay, so thank you, Chair. This report is an update of the Broadband Working Group meeting held on the 24th of November and to seek endorsement of the recommendations identified. And you can see at paragraph 2.2 the actions that were agreed at that meeting. The notes of the meeting are attached at Appendix 1. So it was agreed at the request of the Chair that Openreach is asked to confirm the number of green cabinets across the district which are fibre enabled, an update on the Council's position in relation to 5G presented to the next meeting of the Broadband Working Group, proceeding with the data gathering approaches outlined and communicating information regarding the survey to local businesses and tourism providers, undertaking local publicity once the postcode checker and deployment information is available in relation to Project Stratum, and to note the update on the LFFM project and the appointment of Fibrus to install ultra-fast gigabit broadband in 77 council-owned sites across the district. It was further noted that officers were working with Mid-Ulster District Council and DFE to agree a date for a joint meeting regarding Project Stratum. And just to note, by way of update, that meeting did take place last night at 7 p.m. And there was information shared about the rollout plans for Project Stratum at that meeting. We received a copy of the presentation from that meeting today, so I will circulate that information to all councillors tomorrow so that they have that information. And it's recommended that the Council approves the actions that outlined at paragraph 2.2.
Thanks for that, Kim. First up is Collier Bernice Swift. Lanare, Bernice.
Yeah, Goramagat, Kirlock, and propose the actions as outlined, and satisfied with the meeting last night, as Kim has given a brief on, having met Fibrus and the DFE officials. And a lot of our concerns are most definitely alleviated, with a little bit of work to be done yet on the gaps that are still obvious to us, and to ensure that those who can still meet the eligibility criteria for fibre to the premises will most definitely receive that. Because as it was stated last night, we're not even now talking about super fast, we're talking about hyper fast broadband, and everyone's very enthusiastic about that, and the necessary investment that is needed, and how Fibrus indeed are going to match a shortfall of that same investment. So we were promised it within the confidence and supply for this connection to be received in our rural area, and that's what we remain fighting for. And it was clearly stated and reminded to all last night that we will continue to monitor what's happening, but more importantly, if we're not satisfied and what's not happening. But I was convinced that the people were most definitely spirited in their endeavours, as they too understand rurality, coming from a rural place themselves. So that imbued me with confidence, certainly, and I think members who talked as well were of the same vein. So happy to propose this now going forward, and we'll keep our connection and collaboration with Mid-Ulster on all of the same. Gurmagat.
Gurmagat, Bernice, and glad to hear some optimism on the issue. Next up, Collier Christopher McCaffrey. Lanare Christopher.
Gormagat, Kairli, August Boylum, Mohakiokti, and Ifleshin, Majata, Racha Canafin. I just want to come in there and second the proposals, and of course support what has been said by Councillor Swift there. It was an overall a positive meeting, and I felt that we did get good information and a level of understanding with the officials from Fibrus and DFE. I am also, as a person who lives in a rural area which has bad broadband, and Councillor Swift will be well aware of the unfortunate white spaces. There's lots of white gaps, and particularly some in the Earn West area. So we have unfortunately so far been neglected, and the digital gap has widened. However, we are fairly confident that Fibrus are going to be serious about addressing this issue, and of course stopping this gap from getting any wider. So I'm happy with the meeting last night. I'm happy that we've had the initial engagement. We'll keep focus and make sure that what is being confirmed and to us and as councillors will be delivered for the people of Fermanagh and Omagh. So happy to support. Gurmagat.
And Gurmagat Christopher. It's Justin Scaly. And Collier Anthony Feely.
Yeah, I'll be brief, Tommy, because I'm not going to said just going to come a second as well. One thing I was glad about was a person that lives in a lane. There's 3 poles coming into my house here with the phone that they're going to bring it in people's lanes as living in rural areas. That's one thing I was impressed with. But the only thing I was a wee bit disappointed was a fair bit of white areas on them maps now. But they are going to come back to us with more detailed maps in the places not in, which is a good thing. So just happy enough with it too. But just a lot of white places now on them maps. Okay,
Good morning, Anthony. Good morning, Anthony. Collier, Michael, Lanneray,
yeah, just I suppose 2 points coming back from last night's meeting. First, and I'm happy to see they've corrected the website today, and if they can amend everything as quickly as they have done. I'd pointed out that they'd misspelt Enniskillen on their map, so that was quite a faux pas to be starting off with. Thankfully, they've corrected it now. As Anthony says, we did point out the white spots. They're coming back to us with greater detail on those. And my final point, I suppose, is just personally speaking, it's a worrying enough development that we're going down the route of privatising our broadband infrastructure. But I suppose if we start the ball rolling and get that infrastructure out to the rural areas and to those who need it, first off, we can have that conversation maybe further down the line. Thank you, Chair.
Look forward to renationalise all this in the future. Hopefully it comes to pass. Next up, Collier Adam Gannon.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it was very productive and generally a very positive meeting last night at Fibrous. Very interesting. The website's worth looking at if anyone hasn't had a look at it already for rollout times. The white areas have been mentioned. There was quite a few. One thing that the only negative I really took from the meeting was they told us not to worry about the white areas and not to worry about if there's people in there or not, which was, I thought that was a very weird remark from them, given that they were speaking to representatives of those areas and representatives of people who may be within those areas, and that there will be 1% of the district, or just over 1%, will not benefit from hyperfast broadband even after this investment, and that's always going to happen to a degree. There'll be a small number who may be very hard to reach. It's not necessarily right, but it is the case with this particular funding. But rest assured, to everyone who's listening, that all of us councillors here will be working for those people who may be left out in this occasion, to ensure that this money is spent properly, so we get the full positive impacts as best we can, and that will keep lobbying even for people who may potentially be left out on this occasion. Thank you, Chair.
Adam, and some of us have been working on it a lot longer than others, but there we are. We're getting there. Collier, Seamus Green. All right.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to hopefully all the positive talk that's going back from yesterday's meeting will prove that it's actually that an old skeptic like me is wrong. But I have raised this time and time again over the last years when these town lands and everything was being added into it, and then all of a sudden dropped out of it. Now, if they're all singing and all dancing, why did they drop hundreds of town lands out of the thing? Now, I'll give you an example of one particular town land that I know. There's 3 town lands on this stretch of road. The first town land that you get is on the thing. The second town land was on it but was dropped out, and the third town land is on it. Now, I don't know how they figured out that the town land in the middle had good broadband that they decided to drop it out. It makes no sense. The same cable is going up the road from one town land to another, but seemingly the middle town land was deemed that it had broadband and was dropped out of it. So there is serious flaws in the system. And see if you miss out this time, and this thing where people's been positive, where if you miss out, all will be got again. Well, I have never seen that happening. Unfortunately, in my lifetime, I have never seen these big companies or this ever gone back and rectifying the bad job they done previously. So fingers crossed, everyone's their positivity is correct, but I will certainly reserve judgment until I see the outcome of this.
Gurmaga Seamus, and obviously a bit of realism does no harm, I suppose. Victor Warrington.
Thank you,
Councillor
Chair.
Warrington.
Thank you. Well, obviously, last night's meeting with Fibrous and the DFD was very positive. And like Seamus said, you know, we have been promised so much in the past and it hasn't transpired. And I suppose his description there of the town lands, there are probably several reasons for that. So, you know, somebody was probably sitting in an office in Belfast somewhere looking at them and decided that X amount of town lands didn't want it. But as Seamus said, I myself would have been sceptical of the whole thing. Was sort of encouraged last night. The fact that Fibrous is a private company, at the end of the day, they have to make money, and so they will have to work hard to get this right. And at the end of the day, the bottom line, it'll be the pudding. Whenever the pudding's cooked, we'll see what it tastes like. Thank you.
The proof's in the eating. You're right, Victor. Gurmaga. We already have a proposer and seconder. All members agreed. Thank you, members. Moving on, item 7.4. Back to you, Kim, I believe.
Thank you, Chair. So this report is an update report from the Community Plan and Strategic Partnership Board, and it's an update on the decisions reached at the 19th of November meeting of the board, and also provides information in relation to the establishment or an opportunity to establish a local multi-agency labour market partnership in the Fermanagh and Omagh district. So in terms of the Community Plan and Strategic Partnership Board meeting, there are a number of key actions which were agreed and are set out at paragraph 214. And also during the meeting, consideration was given to correspondence which is attached at Appendix 2 from DFC, inviting councils to consider the establishment of a local multi-agency labour market partnership in the area, utilising existing community planning structures. This would be established initially on an interim basis. This phase aims to test the model and expedite local actions to improve labour market conditions and partnership, moving towards full implementation in a phased approach. And the Strategic Partnership Board did, in principle, support the proposal to move towards a labour market partnership. So the recommendation is that the updated report is noted and that approval is granted for officers to work with partners towards the establishment of an interim multi-agency labour market partnership for the district and the preparation of an associated action plan. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that, Kim. First up, Collier O'Coffey.
Thank you, Chair. It's in relation to the labour market partnerships. I've read all the documentation on them, and frankly, there isn't much detail really provided in terms of what they're going to do. They're clearly supply-side interventions. The problem we have, of course, is the demand side of the economy. There aren't simply any decent, or there aren't many decent, well-paying jobs out there. And what we need is intervention from Stormont to actually start generating them. I also note the noted exclusion of trade unions from any of these partnerships. So it obviously shows what sort of a partnership excludes the representatives of the working class who are supposed to be found jobs by this intervention of Stormont. So I'm not at all happy with the way that this looks. I think that this is set up to potentially enhance the exploitation of workers at this time. And labour market interventions only meaningful if Stormont actually injects investment in this area. We've got full-scale private sector market failure, and we need to see intervention. We need to see large-scale job creation from Stormont. There's a huge number of opportunities of things that's needed. A program of public works to address our infrastructural deficits. The lack of rail connections is a whole host of issues where we need investment, and instead what we're getting is a sticky plaster solution in terms of a partnership that excludes trade unions. So for me, that's a certain no. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Donola. Next up, Councillor Barra McEldove.
Thank you, Chair. Can I ask Kim, is there any thought given to the importance of apprenticeships locally and how we can play a part as a council in developing that agenda? I know that Derry Strabane Council has a particular interest in apprenticeships? And then secondly, could we ensure that early in 2021 we have another meaningful engagement with a range of issues with the leadership of our local FE college called the Southwest College? And I think that throughout 2020, the pandemic year, I don't think there was any kind of enthusiasm shown for that engagement. We had agreed previously that we would meet twice a year and discuss matters like this. And I would like to see some enthusiasm coming from the college side as well as from our side. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Deehan.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to Kim also for her report. I think this is a very good report, Chair, and I would be happy to propose the recommendation. I want to comment particularly on the very detailed report from the Community Planning Strategic Partnership Board. I think good work is being done by the board. I want to make mention in particular to the recognition of the impact of multiple adverse childhood experiences on people's development and both economic and personal, and how we must do everything as a community to minimise those adverse childhood experiences, not least of which is poverty and the direct and indirect impact of poverty on the development of children and families. I also want to support increased funding for advice services. They do excellent work, and the need for these services is brought into sharp focus by the effects of COVID and job losses. So now more than ever, we need those advice services. In relation to the establishment of labour market partnerships, I would like to think, Chair, that this partnership will develop into a body which has teeth and influence and will play a key role in supporting economic development within our locality. I agree with Councillor O'Coffey that the trades union should be involved in this partnership because it is important to safeguard workers' rights. But overall, I think this is an excellent piece of work, and I want to commend everyone and propose the recommendation, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Josine. Have we a seconder there?
Chair, I'll second that.
Thanks for that, Barry. I see Kim has indicated just to add something to this. Thanks for that, Barry. Go to
I just wanted to come back on Councillor McElduff's queries, and this approach is really, I suppose, about preparing for the end of a range of employability programs which are already in place, and it's aiming to work towards replacing that very much regional approach with a range of more locally tailored initiatives, and those would be informed by the bringing together of the skills providers and agencies supporting young people and others in terms of skills development with the skills needs that are required in the district by local employers and within the local economy. So it's very much a partnership approach, and would certainly involve the Southwest College in a significant role within that partnership. And I would very much see apprenticeships being part of that discussion.
Thanks for that, Kim. I see in the chat that Councillor Glenn Campbell has declared an interest as an employee of Southwest College. I see Councillor Earl Thompson, you've indicated there, Earl. Gone down again, Earl. Thanks for that. Okay. We already have it proposed and seconded. All agreed, members?
No.
Yes, go ahead, Donola. Just you wish to voice your opposition due to the fact that there's no trade union involvement. Is that it?
Yeah, well, that's the first thing. I certainly wouldn't be happy and content with it as it stands. And well, I'm a great fan of apprenticeships. There's a lot of varieties with first day terms and so on not being afforded to workers and so on. So no, certainly couldn't support that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, your dissent will be recorded. Collier McAleer.
Chair, yeah, first off, just to declare an interest, I was with Councillor Campbell there. Secondly, I know I
sorry, if you declare the interest, then obviously you can't pass a comment on the item. Sorry, that's the purpose in declaring the interest. Okay, Emmett?
Chair, even though I've no pecuniary...
No, sorry. Once you declare an interest in an item, you're not allowed to engage in the debate or the discussion or the vote. That's the way it works, Emmett. Okay? Thank you, new members. It's already proposed and second. Moving on, members. Thank you, Emmett. Item 7.5.
Thank you, Chair. So this
So over to Kim. Sorry, Kim.
This report provides members with an update on letters of offer and a letter of variance. So there are a number of letters of offer outlined at 2.1.1, and also a letter of variance accepted from DFC in terms of additional funding towards the community support programme for 2020-21. A letter of offer accepted from Sport NI in terms of everybody active outdoor spaces. A letter of offer in relation to an Office of Product Safety and Standards for £55,000 relating to capacity building capability related to the Environmental Health Service. A letter of offer from Invest NI towards the LED2 Innovating Business Growth Programme. A letter of variance from the Department for Communities for there's actually an error here in the report. It's in relation to the OMA revitalisation scheme. And also we have one additional letter of variance from DFC providing an additional £89,000 for COVID-19 business support grant schemes. And that breakdown will be £63,000 urban and £26,000 rural, which has just been received yesterday, Chair. So the recommendation is that the Council notes the acceptance of the letters of offer.
Thanks for that, Kim. First up, Councillor McAleer.
Chair, you just took maybe a second to unmute myself there.
Yeah.
I'm very, very pleased to see the introduction of the first council-provided change in place facility. I think that's a massively progressive step forward by the council, and hopefully it won't be the last we see of that. I have been in contact with Kim, just following up on a few queries on that, so I'm quite happy to propose the paper as noted.
Emmett, thanks for that. Next up, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chairman. And can I thank and commend Kim and her team for all the hard work that they've done on this. I'm happy enough to second the recommendation as proposed and as listed. Thank you, Chairman.
Thanks for that, Earl. Next up, Councillor Barra McElduff, Lanaraya Barra.
Just to particularly welcome the Sports Centre changing place facility. That is really particularly welcome. Just wondering if there are additional costs beyond the 30,000, and if so, how is the difference going to be made up? But it's a hugely important message. Disability rights campaigners have been very strong in this issue, and rightly so. And increasingly in the future, we'll want to see evidence from public authorities that changing place facilities are incorporated into new builds and retrofitted where possible. It's really important for this type of inclusion. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Donald O'Coffey.
It's just in regard to the change in place facility. It's glad to see it for OMA. It's well to see it there, but we do need to see these facilities elsewhere within our council area. We are a laggard when it comes to providing them. They are of vital importance, and also just to welcome the investment in the Broad Meadow. The idea of a reminiscent walk, I think, is an excellent one, and hopefully it has been a huge success what we've already done on the shores of River Erne, and hopefully this will add to that. Thank you, Chair.
And just to remind the councillor, we have a policy of changing places, facilities to be built into any new builds in the council. I believe we passed that out already. Anyone else? Councillor Crystal McCaffrey.
Oh, Goman Eshkill, Kyerly and Keir Mirella, Goman Eshkill.
Chat galore.
Chair, if Chair, if I could just come in on Councillor McElduff's query with regard to the cost of the change in place facility. The full cost of the change in place facility is looking at near 90,000 rather than 30,000. We are getting funding for the 30,000, and we are meeting the remainder of the costs from our estates budget. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that, John. We have a proposed and seconder. All agreed? Moving on, members, to item 8, Community Health and Leisure Directorate reports, and it's 8.1. Over to you, John.
Thank you, Chair. The first report that we have here at 8.1 is in relation to council responsibilities to secure abandoned properties. This was an issue, I think, that was brought up at last month's meeting. And whilst both the council and the Health and Safety Executive for Northern Ireland have responsibility for issues of health and safety in relation to operational construction sites, neither have authority to take action under legislation for hazards when those sites are not operational. Nevertheless, currently our Environmental Health Service, when we do receive complaints or issues with regard to such abandoned properties, we will try and resolve the matters informally by contacting the owner, making them aware of the dangers that exist, and also liaise with other statutory bodies as necessary. I know the issue at the previous meeting was asked about could our powers be increased in relation to this, and could they be reviewed? I suppose any review of powers available to Environmental Health Service or to indeed to any other of the council services to deal with abandoned properties would require changes in legislation on a regional basis, and that would be a quite lengthy process and consultation that would be involved in it. So therefore, Chair, it's recommended that the council notes the responsibilities to secure the abandoned properties which are a health and safety hazard. Thank you, Chair.
Well, thanks for that update, John. First up, Collier, Crystal McCaffrey.
Gormagad, the Cairley, Agus, Gormil Mogad, Kaji, John, Fosta, Asan, Turish, Kakar, Queen. Thanks, Chair, and thank you to the Director for his detailed report into this matter. And I know it was a cause of concern. It was brought up at a previous meeting. However, I think it has been adequately answered and in good depth. So I'm happy just to propose that we note Gormagad.
Gormagad, Christor, Collier, Emmett McAleer.
It's a question really in relation to the top of page 2, where it's stating really the limitations of the Environmental Health Service and I suppose relation to the health and safety at work, and also and that's under 2.2, and on 2.3, sorry, the powers to serve notice in order to repair or enclose dangerous places. And I'm kind of mindful of, I know this was raised in relation to a particular issue, but I was wondering if the officer would have any information in relation to activities such as fracking or gold mining. How would they translate those same powers, or would those same limitations apply?
Councillor, you're going a wee bit off the agenda there, Emmett, but I'll see if John has a response for you.
No, Chair. If the member, Councillor McAleer, if you can contact me directly, is something we can discuss. It's not something that we have thought about in this under the health and safety work order. But certainly, if you have concerns, please give me a shout.
Yeah, I think I'll do that, because I think it's just reading that, it's quite worrying just what's down there, the limitations there. So I will do, John.
Yeah, well, the limitations are there, and as John explained, would need legislative change. But next up, Collier, Donald O'Coffey.
Here, look, just have a question there in terms of 2.4. I see there's a requirement for a building to be in serious ruinous or dilapidated condition. And I'm wondering, because I have had issues like this coming at me from traders and then Enniskillen talking about adjoining buildings and so on. What constitutes a serious ruinous or dilapidated condition? Is there a definition of that somewhere that we can access? Because it is obviously a matter of some concern in some cases. Thank you, Chair.
Again, you're stretching it a bit, Donola, now to be asking for that much detail, but we'll see what John can give us.
No, Chair. As for the definition, Chair, I couldn't honestly say what the definition is. But again, what I would say is, if the member has a particular building in mind, that he could either contact myself or contact Fiona in environmental health, and we'll certainly take a look at it.
Thanks.
It's easier to deal with specifics. You can understand that. And next up, Collier Tomás O'Reilly. Tomás.
Thank you, Chair. And certainly I brought this up and asked to have this looked at. And while it's good enough to note things, noting doesn't actually get us anywhere. And we're still going to wake up tomorrow with the same set of problems without seemingly having the ability to do anything about them. And I'm asking that we would look at how we would be able to effect that change in legislation, that because it's in our own interest here, Chair. We have many sites lying vacant, open to the public directly off footpaths. We have houses lying abandoned and causing a sort of an opportunity for all sorts of activity going on in them, and yet nobody seems to have the ability to enforce the owners of these properties to do something about it, to protect their own citizens. And I think it's a little bit more than noting that we need to do here, Chair.
All right, Tomás. John, again.
Yes, Chair. I suppose in relation to the specifics, if I could encourage members maybe to drop me an email with those sorts of areas, and this doesn't meet the need for effect and change with regard to legislation. But like I say, the Environmental Health Service and indeed all of our regulatory bodies within the council, we do try our best to work with the owners if the owners can be identified. And I suppose the difficulty with the current situation is that many of those owners have gone into bankruptcy and no longer own the site. In relation to how we would affect change in legislation, like I say, it is very much a regional approach that needs to be taken, and therefore I suppose it is something that needs to be taken at executive level, and it's something that we can take a look at, like, to how we would do that. But like I say, it would be a very long process in changing legislation in relation to the powers that we have in relation to this issue.
Okay, next up, Councillor Diana Armstrong. Diana.
Thank you, Chair. It's just maybe a simple question. Just in the case of a dangerous building and a member of the public is hurt, who is liable in that instance? If the owner has gone into bankruptcy, I mean, is there precedent in the district? Is this something that is considered, when we're looking at access or safeguarding dangerous buildings in our towns and villages? Thank you.
Yes, Chair. Again, I think it is a very grey area as to who is responsible in such situation, and that certainly would be up to the courts to decide where there is effectively no owner of such sites. The difficulty with the council going in and doing work is that then you assume some sort of liability, and then that would be a very dangerous precedent to set. And that's why, I suppose, in a sense, that we certainly don't want to be getting involved in those sorts of scenarios. But it would be up to the courts to decide who has actual liability.
Thanks for that, John. Diana, when you're on there, are you happy to second that we note the information received to date? Thanks for that, Diana. Proposed and seconded. All agreed with the information that's been made available. That's basically it. Thank you, members. Moving on to 8.2. John, again, please.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to provide members with an update following the Decade of Commemorations Working Group meeting, which was held just recently there on the 2nd of December, and also to seek approval for the NI21 programme and to seek approval to submit an application to the Shared History Fund grant scheme, which was recently opened in the last couple of weeks. Going on to the issues, I suppose the decade of centenaries and the NI 21 is all based on the principles which the council have agreed here of remembering and commemorating, and which was adopted by the council in 2015, and you will see them listed there in 2.1, which includes all about an inclusive and accepting society. There is the programme for NI 21 is attached at Appendix 3 and includes some of the elements of delivery. There are other events which we would be looking on also in addition to what you see there, such as the planting of trees, the potential of holding a twilight market, the possibility of linking in with activities in neighbouring counties such as Cavan, Leitrim, Monaghan and Sligo, and those were discussed at the working group. What we would plan is that at the next working group meeting that there would be a calendar of events for NI 21 that would be for approval at the committee meeting following that. It's therefore recommended for the council that they note the minutes of that and the actions and recommendations of the Decade of Commemorations Working Groups meetings of the 2nd of September and the 2nd of December. Approves the NI 2021 events and activities programmes, which is included in Appendix 3, and approves the submission of an application to the Shared History Fund grant scheme, which opened in the last couple of weeks, which is mainly based on heritage activities for the year. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, John. First up is Councillor Deborah Erskine.
Thank you, Chair. I want to thank those that have been involved in the work so far. That's went into this. Personally, I see the 2021 as a chance for us as a council to use it as COVID recovery, and we will all have our own views, and I think what's on the table is actually quite balanced. And personally, I think 2021 creates a unique opportunity to look back at the last 100 years and move together into the next 100 years. Northern Ireland 2021 creates opportunity for our council district to showcase itself and our unique history, such as the fact that we have an island town such as Enniskillen. And tourism and business recovery is key. Community groups will have their events and our communities will have their own way of marking these events, and we should be respectful of that. And that's in the interest of respect and equality for all people in this district. And for me, this issue shouldn't be used as any political football, but instead we should be strategic in looking at inclusive events for everybody in this district and events that we can all be proud of. Therefore, I will propose to note the recommendations. However, I will note my disappointment that at this stage there isn't a full calendar of events, especially for tourism and marketing purposes. So I would propose that this is revisited and brought back for us to look at a committee again, which I think is what the director was saying there. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that, Deborah. Next up is Councillor Barra McElduff, Lanaraya.
Okay, Gorma, good. Can you hear me? Can I say that I agree with some of what Councillor Erskine has just said, but not all of it. And I know I'm speaking on behalf of our wider Sinn Féin group in this matter. The one area of concern for us in the NI 21 event and activities programme is community street parties. And in the course of this meeting, I will be proposing that we do not fund, as a council, we do not fund community street parties in 2021. And why do I say that? Well, we have discussed this thoroughly in our group, and we are supportive of the principles that the council adopted in October 2015. This idea of remembering and commemorating and being respectful, but not celebrating partition, not celebrating the formation of the northern state, because for the majority of the people in this council area, it's far from a good news story. The establishment of the northern state, which was an anti-democratic measure. And you know, what I have a duty to report is that the Sinn Féin view is that this state from the early 20s onwards was characterised by discrimination in housing, gerrymandering, including these councils, Tyrone County Council and Fermanagh County Council, and they actually passed a motion in 100 years ago in opposition to partition. You know, very many of our families have experienced internment without trial and the denial of voting rights, civil rights campaigns. So that's there. I appreciate that there are different experiences and different narratives around this, but I think we could broadly live with the majority of the programme and the approach being taken here. But I have to say, Chair Caherly, that I do propose that this council does not fund community street parties in celebration of the establishment of the Northern State and partition. Thank you, Chair.
Next up, Christopher McCaffrey, Collier McCaffrey.
Gormagat, Caherly, well, ar dúspáir bhhaidm sa mahaciacht déanamh leis an méid atá ráite ag mó co-Collier agus mó co-glachtaí Barra McGill. I just want to come in and obviously support what my council colleague and party colleague Barry McElduff is after stating. I do not believe that street parties are an appropriate way to mark the centenary of the formation of the Northern State. I think Councillor McElduff has outlined very eloquently the reasons why. For many people, and indeed the majority of people in our Fermanagh district, partition was not anything to celebrate. It created an artificial state at the time. I mean, I don't want to delve too much back in the past. I think if we are trying to be inclusive, which is what we should be as a council and as individual political representatives, we need to be we need to consider how other members of the community would feel on the sight of street parties at the outset of something which has caused incredible harm and damage to the nationalist community. And I think I've just noted one of the aims of the centenary group was, of course, to start from the historical facts. Well, if we start from the historical facts, on the 3rd of May in 1921, Fermanagh County Council and Tyrone County Council both passed motions which advocated against partition, did not recognise partition. This is where we need to start off from. I don't think it's a cause for celebration. I think that there needs to be adequate thought given to how this would affect one part of the community, and I just want to echo what has been stated by my council colleague, and again reiterate that street parties, and especially council-funded street parties, would not be an appropriate way to mark this occasion. I'll leave it there. Gormagat.
Gormagat, Chris Dorr, and Collier Shahuggin, Bernice Swift. Collier, Bernice Swift. The next one is Bernice.
Yeah, Gormagat, Cahirlocht. Yeah, similarly on the report, I will not celebrate the formation of the Northern Ireland Statelet as a lifelong Republican. My views are well known, and respectfully, I would seek the understanding and the support of my position on the same. And I would state categorically and question, what is there to celebrate? And other councillors have already alluded to it. There has been a long legacy of an abuse of our civil rights and our human rights, which is really not reflected in holding community street parties. We have suffered invasion, oppression and discrimination and border roads, to name but a few. And to go back to the historical aspect of Fermanagh District Council, which was known at the time in 1921 as Fermanagh County Council. As already said, they did pass a resolution on a 13-10 majority not to recognise the newly formed Parliament of Northern Ireland, and I remain supportive of that view. They pledged their allegiance to the Irish Republic and the Second Dáil, and I remain on the same. That resolution at the time stated that the County Council of Fermanagh, in the view of the expressed desire of the large majority of the people in the county, do not recognise the partition Parliament in Belfast, and hereby direct the Secretary to hold no further communications with either Belfast or British local government departments, and pledge our allegiance to Dáil Éireann. Actually, in response to that, at the time, the history papers say the Royal Irish Constabulary evicted the councillors from their offices and confiscated official documents at that time too. And the council was temporarily dissolved, and the councillors were replaced by commissioners. So I hope that doesn't happen to any of us by holding our views. But just in conclusion, I remain with that strong conviction that was held at that time, and respectfully hold that same conviction to this day. So I would like you, Chairman, to note that I will not be supporting that aspect of the document. So dissent, please. Gura Magat.
Gura Magat, Bernice. Next up, Councillor Keith Elliott. Keith.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Well, I suppose, 100 years on, and I think we need to recognise that we should have a shared future, and that means accommodation on both sides of the community. I suppose I'm disappointed to hear the comments around the street parties, as for some communities that it's an opportunity for them to express what they believe in. I know I listened to what has been said about the majority of the people, but then there is the minority of the people that they have a right to express their ways and celebrations. So on that, I'd like to second Councillor Erskine's proposal to note the recommendation. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Keith. Next up, Councillor Donola Coffey.
I'm just, I want to say that I have to say that we've had a discussion earlier on how much money is going to the Irish language versus how much is going on the Ulster Scots, and now we're having another discussion on highly polarised terms around a centenary for Northern Ireland. And I want to start off by saying that the partition certainly was the herald of a carnival reaction, as James Connolly predicted, both north and south. And I think it's important from my perspective to highlight that partition was designed by British imperialism and by the rising Irish bourgeoisie to cut across the risk of socialism, which was spreading across Ireland in the engineer strike in Belfast, which effectively became a Soviet, in the Limerick Soviet, in the Waterford Soviet, had spread to the Clyde, where there was a strike ongoing. In Wales, there was the miners that went out. And in London, the dockers were refusing to handle weapons on their route to Russia. So to me, that's the history of this period. And I don't see it reflected in this, really. It is a betrayal of the hopes and aspirations of the people who followed the likes of James Connolly. And I as well as that, I think it's important to say, because we've heard discrimination against Catholics. There was, of course, but there was discrimination against working class people in general. There wasn't one man, one woman, one vote until 1972 when Stormont fell. So the issue of discrimination is a class issue as well as a sectarian one, unfortunately. And there was obviously sectarian pogroms, intimidation, both sides of the border, and attacks on socialists in the docks in Belfast, which again was reflected right across the board and is again not in this document here. I don't see anything in here. I see lots of talking about nationalists and unionists and all that, but nothing about the Labour Party and the Socialists, who were the main opposition in Northern Ireland in 1921. Nothing in here about how to unite working class people. I think that's what we need to focus on. And I'm for one not going to get involved in any sectarian votes here, so I'm not participating any further in this. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that, Donald. Next up, Councillor Chris Smith.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. I suppose my comments would be, can you hear me all right? Yeah, just my comments would roughly be on the same vein as Councillor Elliott's. I suppose we are in a council where unionists are in a minority, and I would ask those national councillors that this is an event which is very dear to those who describe themselves as unionists. I suppose street parties, and this is all dependent obviously on COVID and all the rest, but street parties are something that have just they sort of epitomize what it is to be sort of British. Street parties are quite common in history, such as in after the Second World War, Jubilee, that kind of stuff. It's quite special to us, and I suppose in an effort to be accommodating and in an effort to show respect, I would leave that door open. And I don't think it's appropriate. I don't think it's appropriate to curtail something that is so very dear to unionist people, simply to try and score some sort of points or whatever. I recognize it's going to be a difficult time, but I don't believe it is appropriate to curtail that. And I think that it will send out a very negative message from the council regarding how they are prepared to, I suppose it would even be, it will be perceived perhaps as how they're prepared to tolerate the unionist celebrations of Northern Ireland. Sure.
At this juncture and in the way the debate is going, I think there's further clarification that John wants to add to the papers that were presented to us. They are perhaps slightly misleading and some clarification may be required before I take any further comments. So I'll ask John to come in and just full clarification, please.
Thank you, Chair. The very first line of the NI 2021 event and activities programme it mentions community street parties there, and you will see a budget of 25,000 per annum. That 25,000, just for absolute clarity for all members, is in relation to the entirety of the grant scheme, which has 2 rounds in it for that year. So it doesn't refer to just for holding community street parties. The way we would see this working is that community organisations would claim or would put in an application under the grant scheme, part of which could be for community street parties, and that would be, there would be a limited amount of money attached to each application for such parties, and that's just to provide clarification, Chair.
Okay, with that in mind, Councillor Mary Gardaí, Colin Gardaí.
Thanks very much, Chair. And from the outset, first I want to thank the group that have worked so hard together to compile this report. But we are where we are at this stage, and thanks for that clarity, John. But I am always very mindful of the situation we find ourselves in. I won't repeat any of the history. That all bears an impact to, depending on what other people's experience in life may or may not have been. But I am a realist at some times, and we do know that we are facing a huge rate increase, and anywhere where maybe we can, I think for a council to be as it says in the report, however it's interpreted by the general public, which is incorporating a new funding priority relating to community street parties, it would seem as if we're being a wee bit irresponsible as a council, and particularly in the times that we have in it, where we have a global pandemic, and we definitely wouldn't want to encourage it. Maybe it's the wording that is misleading, but certainly to the people that would read that report, they would be thinking that we are allocating that sort of money to street parties, and that wouldn't look good. Take our history aside, with the situation that we find ourselves in currently, which is the facing huge rates increase and facing a pandemic that we aren't out of yet. We've had encouraging news today, albeit with vaccinations and that, and please God they go well. But at this stage, we have to be very mindful how we spend our money. And certainly I have no issue with anyone celebrating their past, whatever it is. But you know, some individuals will celebrate differently than others and celebrate different events. And by opening this door, we could open a floodgates to celebrations that maybe would offend people on both sides of the community, and I think that would be a bit reckless going forward. So I would just be afraid that could be abused, John, and I think for that reason we as a council, and bearing in mind the financial implications going forward, where we really have to think of every penny, perhaps I would not agree with that first part of the report. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Colin Gardaí. I have a few more speakers, but actually As the chair, I am minded to withdraw the first line from the proposal. We've been instructed by the director that it is both written wrong in that it should be eligibility for tea parties was the error that was indicated to me, and also the fact that the 25,000 is very misleading in that it appears to be £25,000 for tea parties, which is, as Mary indicated, in the light of rate increases, so there would be exorbitant. I'm minded at this stage, as the chair, to withdraw that top line from the recommendation because of the misleading nature of it, and that a further report be brought back to this committee with clarity and a more structured budget and maybe further information as to what exactly we're talking about, because before we all get hot and bothered about what it means for this community and that community, I think as a council it's been presented to us wrongly. There has been an error in the way it's been presented to us. I would propose, as the chair, to withdraw that first line from the recommendation and ask for members to proceed on that basis, that the issue of the tea parties be brought back and readdressed, and that the rest of the decade of commemorations proposals be adopted. If Councillor Erskine and Councillor Elliott is happy enough with that ruling, I think it may be the only way to resolve this particular issue, and I do believe that it is misrepresented in the papers. I'll go to the next member. Who have we? Councillor Mary Gardy, you're still up there?
Just to say, Chair, that I think that's very helpful. It doesn't mean that it might make clarity that everyone's looking for. Thank you, Chair, for that interjection.
Councillor Wilson, again, advice on what I've just said there, maybe if you want to make comment, but maybe keep it shorter now. Maybe.
Yes, Chair. Well, I think I didn't take up much of your time tonight besides some other people. Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, a shared future is what the people here want and need. But it's quite obvious, and it doesn't surprise me in the least that the council is really a cold house for unionists and unionism in general.
Sorry, Councillor. Sorry, Councillor. I can't. Sorry, Councillor. I can't let you proceed with that type of language. That's absolutely very inaccurate.
I am a councillor, and
you're a councillor. You're a councillor, but you can't slander the whole council in that manner. This is not a cold house for anybody. You are entitled to speak, but you're also entitled to. You're entitled to address the rest of the councillors with manners and respect. Also, Councillor, there's nobody ever stopped you speaking, Bert.
There was a discussion earlier about funding that was going to Ulster Scots. At one of the previous parliaments.
Sorry, Councillor.
Why? You don't want to hear me. You don't want to hear the truth.
Well, I don't want to hear from items way back 10 items ago on the agenda, Bert.
Well,
I've already indicated what my ruling is in relation to the set of papers that were put in front of us. Yes. They have been misrepresented. They are certainly not the way they should have been presented to us. I've ruled as the chair to withdraw that top line of this recommendation. I will go back to Councillor Deborah Erskine. Deborah, if you could come back in, please, Deborah.
I was just coming in to say I think that's a sensible proposal that you had. I wouldn't want people to think that it's solely street parties that money is going to. I think it's wise that we relook at this again and that it's brought back so that we can all have a sensible discussion on this, because it is important to people from my community, and I'm sure it's important to people from your community as well. So I'm happy with that ruling that you have made, Chair. To incorporate
thanks for that, Councillor Erskine. Councillor Elliott, are you happy enough to second with the withdrawal of that top line and for us to come back at further time?
Obviously, what were we talking about the nation for previously? Why did somebody not get that?
Now I must return to Councillor Barry Michael Duff, who made a proposal. Sorry, Bert.
Yeah.
I'm trying to proceed the meeting. You're stalling now. You're keeping.
I'm not stalling at all.
Right. Sorry, Bert.
I haven't the opportunity to speak. I'm not allowed to.
Sorry, Bert. You're blocking my microphone, which is
not
very wise. Well, that can be resolved from this end, Bert. You're fully aware of that. and I'm quite happy to do so if I deem it necessary. Now, I'll go back to Councillor Barry Michael Duff. You did make a proposal, Barry, seconded by Councillor Kristen McCaffrey. In light of the ruling that I am not happy with the papers as presented, could I ask you maybe to withdraw at this stage to address this issue at a later date?
Yes, and just to acknowledge, yes, I will comply with that. I do want to acknowledge the tone of Councillor Erskine and Councillor Elliott and their contributions to the discussion and debate. Thank you, Chair.
Guramagat, agus a Christor McCaffrey and will to Sasta Glacu Laroon Baranshan.
Gurmagat Kaihli, Tame Sasta Glaculashin Kincha Gurmagat.
Thanks for that. Christopher is also happy to withdraw that proposal. So that's the proposal I have made as the chair. And on the proposal of Deborah, Councillor Erskine and Councillor Elliott, we proceed with the rest of the papers for the decade of commemorations. All agreed?
No.
Right, Donal, your dissent is recorded. Thanks for that, Donal. Everyone else is satisfied?
You had recorded mine too, Tommy. Yeah, Bernice.
Did that resolution not resolve your dissent at that stage about the tea parties, Bernice?
Well, it was more than about the tea parties, Tommy.
Good enough. Your dissent is also recorded, Bernice. Okay, members, moving on, and sorry about that, members. Item 8.3, a MUGA update.
Yes, Chair, thank you. This is just to provide members with an update on the council position with regards to MUGAs. I think it was raised a number of months ago as to update the council in relation to the development MUGAs, especially relating back to the old legacy Fermanagh District Council. After that, in 2017, the definition of a MUGA was agreed by the council. And it was also recommended that MUGA facilities should not be developed until a MUGA audit is carried out. And this is just an update, Chair, just to say that MUGA audit has commenced and is currently taking place. And therefore it is the recommendation of the council that the council notes the ongoing work of the audit in relation to the existing MUGA provision, and a further report will be brought to this committee in relation to the development of MUGAs and the future of MUGAs in the district.
Thanks for that.
Thank you,
members mindful that this is just ongoing work. First up is Councillor Barry McElduff.
Yeah, just briefly, Chair, I don't need an answer now, but sooner rather than later, I could have an update on when the MUGA at O'Kane Park in Omagh, outside the CKS Centre, will be repaired. There was vandalism carried out there in recent months. The surfacing has been cut up. I gather from colleagues within the council in the Environment and Place Directorate that it needs to be a certain temperature or climate for the laying of bitumen or surfacing or whatever. So I take that on board, but I would want it recorded that we want that MUGA back in operation as soon as possible. Thank you, Chair, and I would propose that accordingly. Thanks, Chair.
Sorry, Barry, were you proposing the recommendation that noting the ongoing work that's in front of us?
Yes, and with that caveat.
With that caveat that, yeah, John has already recorded that, Barry. Collier Donola Coffey.
Yeah, I'm happy enough to second that, including the caveat of Councillor McElduff's. One question in regard to the MUGAs, because I know it was raised by the Enniskillen councillors at the meeting on the play parks, and I think there was general agreement amongst all. It was that the review of the MUGAs should occur as part and as one with the ongoing review of the play parks because of implicit economies of scale and efficiencies and so on. So just to confirm that, thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Donald. John.
Yeah, Chair, as I said, the review of MUGAs is ongoing as we speak at this point in time, and an external person has been brought in order to take a look at that because it is, as you would imagine, you know, various people have various views as to the current location of them, and in order to get that independence view, we have brought in someone to do it, and that work is ongoing at this point in time, and you know will be progressed very, very quickly, and should be, if not at the same time as the play park provision, will be in the short months thereafter.
Thanks for that, John. Next up, Councillor Earl Thompson.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I can thank John for his report there on the muggers. I'm happy enough to support it as well, the recommendation. I think it's very important with our existing muggers that they are, as alluded to in the document, that they're kept up to a high standard and not let slip at all in any way of deterioration. So I'm happy enough to support it on behalf of the party too, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Earl. Next, Councillor Diana Armstrong. Diana.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it's really going back to the letter of offer from Sport NI, the 109,000 towards everybody active outdoor spaces. Does Sport NI use the muggers as well in the delivery, or this funding, is it used in the delivery of outdoor sport? Because I know I've been involved with the council where it's happened in some of the smaller villages in our north, using it for outdoor exercise. So just wondered, what extent is that, are the muggers used for the outdoor, everybody active outdoor spaces? Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Diane.
Yeah, Chair, if I can just say that the muggers are actually a very important asset in relation to outdoor provision of our sports development function. And the Everybody Active programme, which is funded through Sport NI, the muggers are absolutely vital in relation to that. I suppose the Everybody Active funding from Sport NI will cease on the 31st of March, and that gives us some element of a problem in relation to the development of that programme, which we are currently working on, because it hasn't been replaced as yet by another programme from Sport NI, although Sport NI are working on that. But just to confirm that the muggers are an absolutely vital asset in relation to the development of sports at a very local level.
Okay, thank you for that, John.
Okay, members. That was proposed and seconded. Everybody happy with the... Oh, sorry, I see Howard Thornton hand. Sorry, Howard, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. But just to agree with Donola there that it was subject to conversation amongst the Erskine councillors, and there is a degree of correlation that I do support what's been said about muggers, but I do agree with Donola as well that there has to be a correlation with the review and play parks. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that, Howard. Having said that, all agreed. Thank you, members. Moving on, 8.4. Over to you, John, again, please.
Thank you, Chair. There are a number of elements to this report in relation to heritage within our district. It is to update members in relation to the Heart of Ancient Ulster project. You may remember that at the start of COVID, the Heritage Fund told us that they were restructuring their funding programmes and they were withdrawing the application which we had made. They have now come back to us and have said that they will be opening the programme again for funding applications in February of next year. We've had a meeting with Mid-Ulster Council, who had made the joint application in the first place, and we have suggested two strong themes for the inclusion in such an application as being the O'Neill landscape and the Great Northern Railway. The second part of the report deals with the Donola Traditional Music Archive, which was actually part of the proposed Heart of Ancient Ulster project that was presented at the end of last year to the Heritage Fund. We have continued to work with Donola in relation to the archive and in cataloguing, digitising, cataloguing and presenting the public accessible collection for public. It is proposed that the total cost of doing this work would be 25,000, and Donola have requested a partnership with the council of approximately half of that to ensure the initial stage. The third part of the report deals with the Enniskillen Castle Master Plan. All members will be aware of the fantastic work which was done in relation to the master plan for the Visitor Information Centre, and all of the fantastic work that was done in relation to that. The next stage of the project is to look at a feasibility of the appraisal as the first step towards creating a shovel-ready project should further funding become available. And it's really looking at three areas. One the water gate and the keep, and the options for getting people into it, so that it can become an attraction in its own right. The landscaping of the courtyard, so that it is accessible for all peoples, and also the bringing of the Northern Barracks block, building into heritage and community use, whether it be for education purposes or a classroom, might not be for gallery space. The fourth element of the report deals with the Fermanagh Noma Council heritage plan. It has been one of the aspects of my own is that we should have a heritage plan that will cover the entire district, and an action plan coming out of that heritage plan. And they are commonplace in county councils in the Republic of Ireland. And we are proposing that we would develop a heritage plan. Officers are currently starting work on it. It is estimated that will take 6 months to include, which would include the public consultation and stakeholder consultation and all the rural proofing that is associated with that. So therefore, Chair, it's recommended that the Council notes the update on the Heart of Ancient Ulster project, that it approves the development in partnership with Mid-Ulster District Council an application to the Heritage Fund, which is due in February. Approves entering into a partnership with Donola for the digitisation and cataloguing of its archives, and approves a budget of 12,500 to undertake the process, and approves the commissioning of phase 2 of the Enniskillen Castle Master Plan to include the Castle Keep, Watergate, the courtyard and the Northern Barracks block to a minimum of £20,000, and also approves the development of a heritage plan for the Fermanagh Noma district with associated support for a public consultation to a maximum of £10,000. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, John. First up, Councillor McAleer.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm happy to propose this or support this report. Propose it. Just maybe one or two questions. Hopefully, John can clarify for me. For 1.2 there, the April Fool's announcement that the Heritage Fund and the restructured funding programs had stopped. I'm wondering, just as that project to do with Pomeroy Hills and the Carrickmore Plateau, is that dead in the water at present? I'll just run through my points and maybe you can come back to me at the end. The Donola project, I think, is a fantastic one to be undertaken. I think the catalogue and the richness of that is definitely one that's worth being preserved. So very happy to support that. The Fermanagh councillors will know better about the Enniskillen Castle Master Plan, but I think the mention of the enhanced access is definitely something that I can fully support and get behind. In relation to the heritage plan and across the district, I think it's absolutely worth supporting and prioritising. It notes there that our outstanding natural environment and built-in cultural heritage is to be sustainably managed and where possible enhanced. So I'd be fully supportive of that. And again, then going forward, the Heart of Ancient Ulster projects mentioned. I know I've spoken previously on the railway connections in the area, and of course the O'Neill landscape. And I know yourself, Chair, you've mentioned the Maguire aspect of that and the Flight of the Earls. Obviously, representing Mid-Tyrone, that's something that's very close to my own heart. Neighbouring with Mid-Ulster, and obviously with the Green Road public right of way up my direction as well. The route that was taken by the Earls as they made their way to Europe. So really just happy to support. Just on a second question, note 1.4 there in relation to the Enniskillen Master Plan, and now maths would never be my strong point, but is there still, from the funding that has been secured, an outstanding figure there of just over 4,000 outstanding? And I'm wondering, do we have an idea where that's going to be made up from, or do we have any potential funding available to cover that, or is my maths completely out?
No, Chair, no, Councillor McAleer's maths aren't out. I will check to see what the remainder of the 400,000 has been spent on, or if I do believe that it is that 2.4 million from the Heritage Fund has been all spent in relation to the first phase of the Enniskillen Castle. But it's something I'll come back to you, Councillor McAleer, in relation to that.
Thanks for that. Thanks, Emmett. Josephine Dehan, Councillor Dehan, Councillor Dehan.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, John, for your very comprehensive report. And I'm happy to second this recommendation. Heritage matters are really crucial to us. We need to understand our past and to preserve it in whatever way we can. I'm a great supporter of the Heart of Ancient Ulster project and these suggestions for the O'Neill landscape and the Great Northern Railway are something which would excite me very much. Very worthwhile suggestions. And I think it is appropriate that we should submit a joint application to with the Mid-Ulster Council to the for this funding to the Heritage Lottery Fund. I want to particularly welcome the digitisation and cataloguing of the Donola Traditional Music Archive. It's truly amazing. 800 hours of DVD and cassette recordings and over 500 photographs. It's an amazing archive, and all credit to Donola for collating all this information, and it's a really a great credit to them. And to have that archive digitalized and categorized so that people can access it in a usable form is something that is very worthwhile. And I think 12,500 is a small price to pay for that. So I want to second Councillor McAleer's proposal, Chair. Thank you.
Josephine, thank you for that. Josephine, I have it proposed a second. I would have two more indications. If you could be brief. Barry, Councillor McAleer.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, welcome everything that has been said. Could I just propose that in the short term that the Council carry out an audit of GNR features that are in the landscape and artefacts that are out there, perhaps within the Council area. We all know that and Stephen McCann reminds me of this every week, the horse-drawn tram has been taken away from us, but we need to look about getting the horse-drawn tram back. But if there could seriously be an audit of the bridges, for example, and other landscape features and artefacts that exist within our council area that were associated with the old railway system. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, I think your mic wasn't on there, but I think you were calling me in anyway.
Indeed it was. You can read my lips, Donal. Go ahead.
No problem. Yeah, it's just in regard to this. Obviously, it is a positive development in terms of the castle. I'm happy to second the proposal there from Councillor McElduff. The one thing we had a very interesting engagement with historical monuments, and there's 418 scheduled monuments in Fermanagh and Omagh District Council area, of which only 8 are in state care and 22 are owned by the council. So the overwhelming majority of these are in private hands. I did reference the idea of having a map previously. I think yourself, Chair, said that there was a map already, but I've since checked and there isn't, unfortunately. But I hope that we are bringing one forward under this proposal. But one of the things I would like to highlight on that is that we need to the interpretation of these sites is actually the critical feature. And it is great that we're learning from the advances that's been made in south of many councils in the south have made a lot out of this in terms of their tourism product. But one of the critical features, I think, is to make it accessible to visitors and to local residents. And the interpretation is actually the critical bit, as well as looking after the sites and mapping them and all that, making it easy to find them and so on, but actually allowing them to understand them in their context. So if that could be worked in, thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Donal. Sorry, Donal, just for clarification, what sites were on this map?
I was talking about the megalithic sites when we were discussing it previously, Chair. But obviously this is a wider thing at this stage, but it certainly would include the megalithic, if you get me.
Yeah, I do believe there's one out there, Donal. I think I got one in the past, but anyway, I could be wrong on that. Thanks for that. We have a proposer and seconder, or sorry, we have a proposal from Barry and seconded by Donal Coffey to have a review of all the railway remnants in the district. All agreed? Thank you, members. And the item itself, then, the heritage plan, proposed and seconded. All agreed? Thank you, members. Moving on to 8.5. Back to you, John.
Thank you, Chair. This report includes two items. One is in relation to further funding, which has been made available from DFC in relation to Christmas and winter COVID food support scheme. And it is expected that we will receive somewhere in the region of 120,000 to cover the period from now until the 31st of March of next year. And it is expected that some of that funding will be available over the Christmas period. And DFC have identified various groups that they would like to see particularly benefit from the fund, and you know, in consultation with various community groups and different organisations, there are various different types of projects which we can see would be eligible for the funding. There was an issue, I suppose, in relation to it, in that this came late in the day, and in order to enable timely delivery of the Christmas initiatives, FODC opened a grant call last week. Just for 1 week, and it's a very short period, but we are working with the various community organisations and with various voluntary organisations in order to make sure that as many people take advantage of this scheme as possible. It was necessary to open it in advance of tonight's meeting and indeed the council meeting, so that we could make proposals that would be in place for the Christmas period. The second part of the report is financial assistance under the significant sporting achievements. Members at the start of the committee meeting mentioned the Fermanagh Senior Gaelic Ladies football team who were successful last weekend in the All-Ireland Junior Championship, and the Fermanagh County Board have made an application to us for £1,000 in order to support their attendance at that event. Also, the Fermanagh Senior Hurling team competed in the Lori Maher Cup on the 28th of November, and they also have made an application for funding in reaching the national final. So in conclusion, Chair, it's recommended that the Council retrospectively approves the grant aid call in respect of the DFC COVID-19 Christmas Food Support Fund, that notes that a further report will be presented to a future committee meeting on the details of the projects supported under the fund. Provides £1,000 funding for the Fermanagh Senior Hurling team for participation in the 2020 Lori Maher Cup final on 20th of November, and provides a further £1,000 funding to the Fermanagh Senior Ladies Gaelic football team for participation in the 2020 Ladies Football Junior Championship final on the 5th of December. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that, John. First up, Councillor Mary Garrity. Go ahead, Mary.
Thank you very much, Chair. And just at the outset, you have to welcome this food support scheme, which is so badly needed and will be, especially over the coming weeks and months, and that support will be greatly welcomed. And where I welcome it, I would say a lot done and more to do, because we know that these funding streams run out rather quick, but we certainly aren't going to look a gift horse in the mouth, and we look forward. I congratulate the Council in advance for the work that they're going to be and pressure they're going to be under to deliver this scheme within the short time that we have, and thank them for that. On a side issue, on a Christmas note, just briefly, thanks to John for the great light-up system we have in Omagh and Enniskillen. But on to the rest of the report, Chair, I also want to welcome the funding that has been made available to the recent success in the Gaelic and hurling, and especially to the ladies, who I just want to put on record. I didn't get in earlier, there's quite a lot of comments, but as a former ladies Gaelic footballer, I want to congratulate the Fermanagh ladies on their huge success. And can I also note, for those that may have not been watching or may not watch the Gaelic or may watch other sports, there was a number of matches at the weekend, and the ladies All-Ireland final was by far the most superior game to watch, with enjoyment and technique and skill, as opposed to the two other semi-finals that we had to endure. So my hoo to the ladies indeed, but thanks to John for the work you're doing in the background, and where we welcome that grant support scheme. Let's hope it goes a long way, because we need it in these difficult times. Happy to propose the report, Chair. The recommendations. Thank you.
Mary. Councillor Siobhan Corey.
Gurmil Margaret Caherly, and thank you, John. and I will second the recommendations here. John, as well, just to echo that, what Mary has said there, thank you, and thanks all our staff for being on the ball with this. I know yous are under pressure with trying to get this turned around for Christmas. And I'd also just like to send out our thanks also to the community and voluntary sector who are out on the ground and going to be delivering this, you know. So thanks in advance for that. Also, just around the hurling and Gurmagat Collier Gardaí as well, because you reminded me the last night around the Significant Achievement Award, and I was glad then to make contact with Fermanagh J, and I'm delighted now to see, I have been chatting them since as well, so I'm delighted that we are supporting them under the Significant Achievement funding. I'm a huge fan of hurling and camogie. So, you know, I just think that actually both our teams, the hurlers and the Fermanagh ladies, it was an unbelievable match. It was just a joy to watch, and I think it's just give everybody a huge lift. And coming from a small county like ours with the small pool of players, I think the achievements, just reaching the finals for both teams, are just massive. And I'd just like to thank those teams publicly and everybody associated with them for giving us the lift. You know, it's great to be supporting your own county in an All-Ireland hurling final and seeing our women just bringing it home. Just brilliant. So, Gurmil Magav.
Siobhan. Next up, Collier McAleer.
Yeah, thank you. I've just a couple of questions, I suppose, about this, but by and large, happy to support. Sorry, John, just in relation to the initial breakdown you give us of this, I noticed at the top of page 2 it says about the offer being expected the week commencing the 7th of December. Have we have received confirmation on that now, and it is being acted on, or is that still to be received?
No, Chair, we still haven't received the letter of offer from Department for Communities yet, but we are assured that it is coming to us.
We're assured, we just don't know the final figure, but it's to be in excess of £120,000, is that right?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, well, I suppose just under the 0.212, just underneath that is a bit concerning, and I appreciate that there are a number of groups listed there who are definitely entitled to be there, but I note that people who are, while it refers to people who have lost income as a result of the pandemic, it doesn't make any reference to people who are already living, I suppose, paycheck to paycheck. They have financial commitments and maybe are having to decide or prioritize whether they're going to pay for electricity one week, heating the next, and that maybe we should widen the scope. And I know DFC have identified a few groups there. I would be proposing that we get back to them and include people who are currently living within poverty, working poverty, that they should be added to that list. I don't think they should be excluded. Again, I'm hopeful that there is a generous sum coming down the road, because I notice further down in 2.1.3 that this is to last until March 2021. So it's not just really the Christmas period, that this is going to last further into the new year. And then just finally, the other speakers have made reference to, and it was referenced at the start of the year, or at the start of the meeting, sorry, that the great achievements of the County Fermanagh teams. I'd like to add my support to what has gone before. I think the achievements of the Fermanagh ladies in particular, and claiming the All-Ireland junior title for the second time in 3 years, is absolutely worth commending and worth noting and celebrating. And I know there was a proposal at the start of the meeting to send them a letter, but I would like to propose that we actually host a civic reception for them again when it's feasible and safe to do so. But I would extend that also to the Fermanagh hurlers, you know, making it to an All-Ireland final, regardless of the outcome, and obviously we'd want to see them be victorious, and they would want that more than the rest of us. But to get that far is an absolutely amazing achievement, and it should be celebrated. And I'd wish them luck going forward, but I'd just like to propose that we do extend the invitation to a formal civic reception for both teams there. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that, Councillor Gurmay. I do believe there's a procedure, a protocol in relation to civic receptions if one has been requested. Obviously, it's not timely at the minute. Obviously, it won't happen, but there is a procedure or a protocol, a form to be filled in, etc. Councillor, but you can find that out at a later date. Cornell Coffee, you wish to speak?
Good Chair. It has to be said that while we should obviously welcome this money, the reality is in 2020, central government is paying local council 120,000 in Fermanagh and Omagh to basically provide food aid to people in our community. The situation in Belfast is so bad that they've actually taken over the SSE arena because the demand for food aid has gone through the roof. And
it's the same as the last time.
Are we disconnected there, Chair?
Technical issue. Our IT expert is working on it officially here beside me, but looking slightly panicked.
It's coming back, I think.
It's coming back. I think that's all the members come bouncing back on. So give us a minute and we'll get the technical issue. Just a good job we're not having a vote, maybe. I'm reliably informed we're all back online there. If you wish to continue, Donald, but
thank you, Chair.
Maybe keep it to
I've got a proposal.
Keep it to Fermanagh, maybe,
Yeah.
Donald.
I'm trying to show.
Tempus fugit.
I understand, Chair. The issue is that we're in a real crisis here, and one of the main ways that could be resolved is by dealing with in-work poverty, because more than 50% of people accessing food aid before the crisis were working households. Now it has gone through the roof, the number who are accessing it who are from working households. So one of the first things, if I can make two amendments, Councillor McAleer's proposal. The first is that when we go back to the department, that we actually encourage them to specifically reference the need for and to open up access to working poor, because a lot of working class people.
Sorry, Councillor. Sorry to interrupt. Dublin. I don't believe, or I may have missed. Councillor McAleer, I don't believe made a proposal.
He did to write to the department.
Yeah.
Sorry, Emmett, I missed that. Could you reissue your proposal, Emmett? Sorry, Donald.
Right, Chair. So it was in relation to item 2.1.2, and there's a list of people to benefit from the fund, and I've said missing.
Oh,
from
yes,
that
yes. I thought.
Chair.
So proposed that we go back to.
Yeah, sorry, Emmett. I didn't interpret it as a proposal, but I believe that John took a note of it and was going to address it. Maybe John could explain before we proceed. Sorry.
Yes, Chair, in relation, DFC have identified the groups that are listed there at 2.1.2. In discussions with DFC, they are very open to anyone in our district who is in need during this time. That these are used in a sense as an example, but are not fully exclusive to these groups.
In which case, Chair, just very quickly, I'll finish my 2 points.
Sorry, John, just before you proceed, that was my understanding that Emmett had suggested that an expansion of the criteria, and I thought it was just for a to-do list for John as opposed to a letter. But forgive me if it was a proposal for a letter. I'm not sure a letter would assist. Maybe John could investigate it for a widening, as he explained there, Donald.
Well, if it's letter required, I'd certainly want one anyway, because the second, before I get on to the second point, the first point is really, I think the department needs to encourage people who are in work poverty to access this, because there's a major stigma around accessing food aid, and we need to encourage people. So that's my first point, if possible. So the right to the department. I also
sorry, Donald. Now the position is at the minute that in response to what Emmett proposed, John is to ascertain, can we widen out the sphere of the allocation? Are you happy with that, or do you want to add to the list that Emmett proposed? As opposed to writing the letter, I'm very averse to these writing letters because we get the same letter
back. I want a letter
written
anyway, Chair. It's because there's a reference there on page under 2.1.3 to Meals on Wheels, and as you will know, the reason that this is included in documentation coming from the department is because virtually everywhere else, Meals on Wheels has been scrapped, but Meals on Wheels remains, thankfully, just about on life support in our council area. And I think it's absolutely essential that we see the department link up with the Western Trust area to actually ensure that this funding actually goes to underpin the continued provision of Meals on Wheels from Southwest Acute Hospital in particular. So I would like to, if possible, Chair, to write to both the Western Health and Social Care Trust and to the department to highlight the fact that the department wants to fund Meals on Wheels on one hand, and that the Health and Social Care Trust is actually considering scrapping Meals on Wheels on the other hand, which is currently under review. So, if possible, that would be my proposal. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that, Donald. Emmett, do you wish to second that proposal?
Yeah, more than happy to second that, Chair. Thank you.
That will formalise it there. Thanks for that, Emmett. On that proposal of Donald's and seconded by Emmett, all members agreed? Silence is agreement. Thank you, members. And on the proposal of Councillor Garrity, seconded by Siobhan Curry, the report of the Director is proposed and seconded. All agreed? Thank you, members. At this point in the agenda, I need a declaration to go into confidential to deal with item 14. Collier McCaffrey.
Sorry, Chair. I think you may have missed my hand there. Maybe it's not shown on your side.
You're not at the top of the list, Collier McCann. Was it on the previous item?
It was indeed. It was indeed.
Oh, sorry, Councillor. If go ahead, have your speak.
Thank you, Chair. To yourself, if you could just ask John, as in relation to the DFC food parcels, the Christmas parcels there that's been mentioned, I'm a bit concerned about the short time frame, and I understand, of course, the rationale and the reasoning for it. You know, Christmas is around the corner. However, I'm just wondering, would that put some community groups at a disadvantage to actually applying for this and getting this rolled out to people who need it on the ground? I know that the last time there was a huge uptake on it the last time, Chair, and I'm just afraid, you know, that some groups mightn't have the time to get that.
Sorry, members, we have somebody on mic. Sorry, members. Somebody's on mic there that's not on the forum. Go ahead, Stephen.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I was just asking there, would there be a concern that some groups mightn't have the time to get this applied for and get the money rolled out where it should be going?
Chair, if I can just say that's exactly the reason why we went out as soon as we were aware of this funding. We went out for the call last week. We are working with all community and voluntary organisations in trying to help them as much as possible in order to apply for these funds. And we have been showing a massive interest, I have to say, to date in relation to this sort of Christmas appeal. I believe that this has been widely spread, so it has throughout our district among the community and voluntary organisations, and I think everyone is aware of it. And we have been sending out the message that where help is needed and capacity in those organisations in applying for this funds, that we are available. So I think we will reach all of those who have a specific need in relation to the funding, Chair.
That's grand. That's reassuring. Thank you, John.
Okay, Stephen. In response to your chat, Councillor McAleer, I do believe the procedure for civic reception has to be requested to the chair. I think I'm correct. I'm looking for nods of approval from the directors here. I believe I'm correct. So if you contact Sonia, would be the right director, and she would give you the full instructions to request the civic reception, but it's on the behest of the chair as far as I'm aware. Okay with that, Emmett?
So, Chair, just for clarification, because I previously requested one for Mickey Hart on his retirement, and it seemed to pass unanimously, and there was no follow-up in terms of having to do that. So just I'm happy to do that if that's the procedure. It's just for my own information.
Well, just for accuracy, was it a civic reception? Was the request for Mickey Hart? Was it not a request for? So go ahead.
Good, you know, it was for a civic reception, all right, yes.
Right. Again, was it coming through this committee, Emmett?
Well, it was under any other business on the Brexit committee. It was just the first meeting following.
Right. Right. Sorry, I can't help with that one, Emmett, obviously. But again, if you give Sonia, I believe, a call on both those issues, she might be fit to help you.
Yeah,
All right, Emmett, I think that's the procedure, and unless some other member wishes to correct me, but I think that's the correct procedure. At this stage, member, I need a proposal to go into confidential.
Proposed.
Christopher McCaffrey there.
Proposed.
Thanks. And a seconder.
I'll second it, Tommy Anthony.
Anthony Feely. Right.
Development of the Lovemelvin Holiday Centre in Garrison. If we have a proposer and seconder.
A proposer and seconder for that, please.
Both Councillor Blake.
Councillor Blake.
Councillor McCann.
Thanks, Councillor McCann. Gormila Moyagov. We probably will have a reconvene meeting before Christmas. We have to try and squeeze something in. It's going to be tight. Okay, members, that's the meeting over officially anyway, and thanks for your assistance as best we could.
Thank you, Chair. Merry Christmas.
Right. The same to you, Mary. I should probably see you
Merry
another meeting
Christmas,
before
Tommy.
that. Right, Slaughter, yeah.
Christmas.